Nara is an iconic city that was the ancient capital of Japan in the heartland of early Japanese society. This city was the capital of Japan from 710 to 794 AD, but the history of the area is even older and more significant. Most Buddhist sites date back to the 7th century and indicate the first wave of Buddhism in Japan that arrived in the mid-6th century. The history is seen in the nearby Horyuji Temple that lays claim to the title of having the oldest wooden building in the world. Further, in a region a few miles south of the city center lies the Omiwa Shrine for the patron saint of Mount Miwa, and is one of the earliest Shinto shrines that survives to this day. A day trip can be used to explore this fascinating city, and here is what I found to be the most iconic during my travels. The city center of Nara is located an hour outside of Osaka or Kyoto, and is an easy place to visit as either a day trip or a weekend. The JR station is close to all the main sites of the city center, and there's ample lodging, food, and shopping in the downtown area. If there during your travels, I recommend the American-style burger food truck in front of the Smile Hotel next to the JR train station for an awesome Japanese take on an American icon. Not every meal has to be Japanese food while in Japan. All meals are of the highest quality. The city is very walkable, with numerous pedestrian streets and arcades between the JR station and the first major temple complex to the east, Kofukuji. Kofukuji, name meaning the temple that generates blessings, is one of the main temples that used to be one of the 7 leading powers in the city throughout the ages, known as the Nanto Shichi Daiji. I visited 3 of these surviving temples on this trip to Nara, and will be looking to see the others on my next visit. The current Kofukuji site dates back to 710 AD, and the buildings date from mostly the 13th and 15th centuries. Over the centuries, the central Golden Hall burned down a total of 7 times. In 1819, more than 100 years after the most recent of those fires, donations from the people of Nara finally allowed for the erection of a small temporary hall. But by the 1970s, the structure had deteriorated to the point that it had been abandoned and ultimately demolished in 2000. However, there is now a faithful reproduction of the original Central Golden Hall and the first full-scale reconstruction in more than 3 centuries that was consecrated in October 2018 with an elaborate series of rituals and is now open to the public. I was fortunate enough to be able to visit only a few months after this original opening. The shining form of the national treasures within the site have truly earned this new building to rest in. I highly recommend paying to see the interior of the building, where pictures are not allowed, but it is truly worth the sight. Next, make your way further up the hillsides towards Todaiji. On the way, you will likely be met by the famous local residents, the Nara deer. They will likely bow their head towards you, and this means they would like a snack. Vendors sell specialty biscuits for you to use, but watch out for the aggressive ones. After having fun with the locals, walk down the main path towards Todaiji. It is hard to miss, and a huge gate will be on the way. Todaiji, which like Kofukuji was one of the 7 great temples of Nara, is an impressive temple complex established in the mid-8th century AD. Within the main hall of the temple is the world's largest bronze statue of Vairocana, a celestial Buddha, known as Daibutsu in Japan. The 50-foot tall statue is a national treasure, and both Todaiji and Kofukuji are UNESCO World Heritage Sites, and when you visit, you can feel the historical weight. Strolling around the temple grounds is quite tranquil, unless it is a busy day, but making your way up the hill and within the nearby Nara Park will allow for peace and quiet no matter what. Make sure to visit the Nigatsudo Hall in the northeast corner of the temple complex for extensive views of the area. Also of note is that the temple used to house 2 100-meter or 300-foot tall pagodas, but both were lost due to earthquakes. However, there is one lasting piece of one of those record-breaking pagodas, a golden sorin that used to be the top spire of the building and an important religious icon. A short train ride away from the Nara station lies Horyuji Temple. While a bit of a walk from the train station to Ikaruga and facing a pricey $20 entry fee, I find it is worth a visit. This treasured Japanese architecture is one of the oldest wooden buildings in the world today, according to UNESCO, and represents the key utility of this medium in art and culture. This site is a Buddhist temple made during the Hakuho period, with multiple phases of work done. The original Asuka period construction was based in the end of the 6th century into the beginning of the 7th century, with planning and construction ending around 607. This site was originally called Wakakusa-dera until a fire, the only natural disasters capable of destroying wood architecture, occurred in the middle of the 7th century. The main complex seen today was rebuilt in the year 670, with minor reconstructions through the centuries. The design of this site is based on continental Asian architecture and design, but incorporates unique Japanese influence, especially with the specific type of wood that is used, and is one of the first examples of Japanese independence from continental Buddhist form. The hinoki cypress wood that is used is the longest lasting hardwood available in Japan. No other wood stands close to having a chance against time when compared to hinoki. For example, cryptomeria wood is regarded as the second best hardwood, but it can only keep its structural integrity for 700 or 800 years, while hinoki has easily survived here at Horyuji for over 1300 years. Exploring these 3 temples that I discussed fully will take up to a full day's worth of time, but it will offer another amazing picture of ancient Japan. While the temples are not as flashy as those in Kyoto or Nikko, visitors can really get a more hands-on feel with the ancient history of the Japanese land. Nara truly is the area where Japan came into its own. If you plan to spend more time in the city, there are more temples to explore and multiple high-ranking museums that delve deep into the history and culture of the region through the ages. But for those looking to experience more of Japan, it is easy to head off to other regions as well. There's so much to do, and it's hard to decide. Hopefully with these videos, I can continue to showcase the highlights of the country so you can determine what will be best for your next trip.